Well, I finally got to that point in the year. Student teaching is finally done, and I've already had my last day. It's Saturday. I finished up yesterday, and yesterday was very much so a bittersweet day. I think I can say that I'm not nearly as exhausted as I was this time yesterday, nor am I as exhausted as people's vlogs look from last year, so I made it through in one piece. I think that's pretty successful. Yesterday was a bittersweet day. It was pretty relaxed overall, relatively casual Friday, and got to hang out with the students some, and it was really just a little bit more of a relaxed day than I've been used to. We had finished up all the material for student that I'd been doing for student teaching and all of the SOL content for the year already. So it was really just starting review, dealing with makeup work. Overall, pretty calm last day. Learned a lot in this internship, got some notes, so some things that I want to talk about that I think are really important to hit on as things that I've learned through my student teaching internship. In second block yesterday, had some goodbyes with students, but not nearly to the degree that I did in third. I think that third is the class that I connected with absolutely the most because it meets every day. It's a smaller class, and the students and I just clicked better for a variety of reasons. They made me a couple of cards, and they had all signed a going away thing for me, which I thought was really sweet, and it told me a lot about the relationships that I had built that I didn't really necessarily realize that I had done. That made me feel good, and a couple of them saying that they'll miss me as a teacher. That means a lot to me, and I was grateful for what I've learned, especially from them. Um, Things that I've learned overall, and this is sort of taking a whole look back at the entire semester. I've definitely seen my teaching improve a lot just from the lesson plans and stuff that I'd been doing at the beginning of the internship to what I've been doing more since spring break, the last 3, 4 weeks or so. And just the style and the different ways that I've improved. It's really shocking to look back and see where I was. Um, I've noticed that the students really appreciate a variety in styles, though it did take an adjustment period when I came in. It seems like the students were very appreciative overall of just switching things up a little bit, unit to unit, so that it didn't feel like the same thing over and over again. Um, that being said, the structure, this was something that was talked about a lot in the Long and Wrong book that we read the first days of school. But that need for structure, I think, is one of the things that really threw the students off when I first started teaching, that I was able to really improve on throughout the course of the semester and the teaching internship. That made a very big difference in organization and just being ready for whatever happens. Makes a lot of difference. Few challenges that I see ahead. One of them being balance, and I can tell that it's very difficult for first year teachers to be able to have a life of their own because so much of the stuff that I saw other teachers drawing on were notebooks and binders of lessons that they had done 1 year ago or 5 years ago, or in some cases longer ago than that. And just having that depth of knowledge to draw on is something that a first year teacher is not going to have. And developing that's going to be pretty exhausting, I can tell. I think managing the stress too, working 20 to 30 hours a week this semester on top of student teaching and having nearly 500 miles a week and commuting to and from school, my stress level got quite out of hand at a variety of occasions, to the point that a lot of people who are important to me got worried about me. Um, I know that the stress is something that a first year teacher is going to struggle with, um, and I know that there is a better way for education to be structured so that this doesn't happen to the same degree that it does now. I don't know what that system would be, but I feel like it would shake up a lot of things that are taken for granted in education now. and they're not changes that I really expect to see happen. I know in looking for jobs, commute time is something that I've got to look seriously at. Driving 50 miles each way to school, an hour a day, or an hour each way, is not sustainable for me. I know that several of my friends from this program, as well as other programs, have commuted longer and further for their real jobs, and that's not something that I see me being able to do. I think commuting is a waste of time, and I know that I will need to take that into consideration if and when I do look for teaching jobs. Teaching is a different beast than I realized it was at the start of the semester. And being on the other side of the desk in a high school is a very different experience. A very enjoyable experience, but very different than what my high school experience was like. Things that I've seen that disappoint me. The SOLs have narrowed the curriculum drastically to the point where if it's not on the SOLs or in the AP guide or in the dual credit classes for those that I observed, it doesn't really get taught. There might be a little aside here and there, but that framework that's set by the state and always isn't always the best from the content knowledge that I have. That's the curriculum we're given, and that's what gets taught. And I think deviating from that's going to be very much so a challenge. I think it's also another issue with education is just the degree that teachers sort of stay within the box, so to speak, in terms of ideas and how they structure their curriculum. The dependence on the SOLs is an unfortunate reality. And I had an interesting conversation with one of the other teachers at school yesterday, saying, use a book, depend on it, that way parents can help. And I thought that was interesting, because that goes so much opposite what several of the books we read this fall said to do. But I think that it's good to be able to consider all angles and really recognizing that teaching takes time to develop into being a really effective practitioner. The biggest challenge that I faced in terms of getting and keeping students up to speed is the absences. I know I didn't miss days in high school, and most of my friends didn't either. But seeing anywhere from 3 to 10 kids absent out of a class of 30 on a pretty regular basis, and quite frequently the same kids, having kids that were homebound, kids that were teenage mothers, other challenges like that are things that I didn't see when I was a student, and they've definitely changed my perspective on education and how teachers need to structure their lessons. And that really gets to the last thing that I learned about teaching that I already knew, but I didn't really know how to explain. Teaching's relationships, and that's what gets remembered. And when I think back to the folks that I had in high school and middle school, I don't remember a lot of the specific content or really any specific classes, but I do remember teachers caring about me as an individual. That is, to me, the most important thing for teachers to do. With a lot of the students I had, I felt like a lot of them really don't have an advocate at home. Many of them come from challenging backgrounds that I just can't relate to. But being there for students and not being there to hassle them, being there to support them, cutting kids a break when they need it, and being pleasant, even if it's a hard day for you. You never know what it means to that student that day. And I've seen a variety of different styles and how teachers go about that. And I think that's really the most powerful thing that I took away from the student teaching internship, was just seeing that difference that 5 minutes after class one day can mean for one student's life. And maybe it's the difference between them staying in school and not. But that's really what I took away from the overall experience. Learned a lot, had a good time, but definitely am exhausted from the process, and I'm almost done.